My name is Benny Boscio. I'm the president of the Correction Officers Benevolent Association. I'd like to welcome all the new board members to the BOC. I look forward to hoping one day we can meet all in person. When I testify at some of the city council hearings, I usually, have written testimony. I just wrote a couple of bullet points that I just like to discuss. Um, I saw that the BOC's recommendation of having an A officer perform CPR while they are by themselves. That is a major security breach because if an officer is in the A bubble by themselves, if the incident is staged, then it could. Is my video on?
Yep,
Oh,
it's on.
sorry. All right, somebody told me it wasn't.
It's a little bit choppy, but we can see and hear you.
Okay. If the incident is staged, then the detainees in the housing area can take that officer hostage, take the keys, have the keys to leave the housing area. So that was something that I noticed in the report. I haven't divulged every issue of the report, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. As it stands, no officer should be in a housing area by themselves. And we all know that we are scapegoated. Correction officers are blamed for everything that people feel is wrong with the criminal justice system. It's not fair. And I advocate for my members because we are working doubles, triples. This notion that people are out sick, feigning illness, there is a disciplinary process for that. If they are found to be feigning illness, then there's a disciplinary process for that. But the reality is that the prior administration failed to hire a single correction officer in 3 years' time. And since January 1st of 2019, we've approximately lost 3,000 correction officers due to resignations and retirements because of our horrible working conditions. It's not a correction officer's job to keep up with the infrastructure on Rikers Island. Basically, we feel that when a lot of our elected officials deemed Rikers was to be closed, they kind of turned their backs on us and we were kind of left to rot on Rikers Island. And when you talk about people being out sick, you talk about 1,500 correction officers being assaulted in the last year. We visit officers in the hospital with major injuries, broken eye sockets, broken noses, broken arms. And those injuries, unfortunately, take time to heal. Not to mention the officers that try to come back to work, MMR status like you talk about. But MMR status doesn't allow an officer to have inmate contact because they are not physically 100% to defend themselves or to defend the incarcerated individuals. I just wanted to bring that, to everybody's attention. And I hear the advocates come on here all the time and, are against us having more staff. But you do the math. In that time frame that I described to you, only 75 officers graduated from the Correction Academy. And that's our reality. So, when the inmate population dropped down to 3,900 and then rose again to 6,000, and you don't hire in that time frame, then you compile that with COVID. This is the end result of why we are in the situation that we're in. But everybody wants to talk about the numbers of staff that are out sick, but nobody wants to dive into why they are out sick. What are the injuries people are suffering? What are people that have had surgery, blown out knees? All of that is never talked about. The other issue that people don't want to talk about is technically OBCC and EMTC on Rikers Island are technically not even budgeted for. They're supposed to be closed facilities. But yet, EMTC is running as a fully operational jail that has 640 inmates. This is our reality. So what we're asking for is give us a correction officer hire correction officers that are required to man every post on Rikers Island. Stop fudging the numbers. The city has to, the prior administration fudged the numbers with the table of organization. And no disrespect to you, Freya. I've been before you. We've been in meetings together. I've voiced the concerns about staffing, about us getting assaulted. People don't want to have punitive segregation. But the reality is this. The violence has steadily risen since 2016 to present, steadily risen every year on assaults on staff. And everybody wants to talk about, well, the small population of individuals that continuously assault and do not want to change behavior. Why aren't the advocates advocating for the inmate that is on the other side of that slashing to the face, right? Because everybody wants to come to jail to do their time, and they should be afforded every program that they are entitled to get. But the reality is that we cannot afford them those programs because we don't have the staff to do it, and we did not create this mess. I know we want to get blamed for sick leave and all this other stuff, but look, the reality is when you have the reason why we have the sick leave policy that we have is because we perform a very dangerous job for this city. Very dangerous. We provide safety and security to the city of New York. And we ask that you stop scapegoating us, because you have to have a constant flow of hiring. Because the other thing is that sometimes when people want to get into law enforcement jobs, they take multiple city exams. They take NYPD, they take MTA police, they take Port Authority. And if corrections calls them first, they come to corrections. And then when those exams open up, sometimes they leave. And that 3-year period decimated us. But nobody wants to talk about that. I hear people talking about a receivership. Well, guess what? A receiver comes in, is not going to wave a magic wand, and all of our problems are going to go away. No, these all unmanned areas are not going to go away. And I heard something about 13. I think as of yesterday, EMTC, as of the Midnight Tour and the 73 Tour, had 22 unmanned posts. Okay, and that was just EMTC. So I didn't even get the numbers from every facility there. But this is our reality. So advocates, I ask you, stop fighting about us getting staff, because staff will try to make everybody safer. The detainees will get their programs, and they won't be more aggressive towards us because they're not getting their programs. See, it's like we're in this vicious cycle that nobody wants to talk about, right? I listen to meeting after meeting, and correction officers get demonized over and over and over again. We are 85% Black and brown law enforcement in this city, and no other city agency gets treated the way we do. All right, the detainees in our custody are 85, are mostly Black and brown as well. Is that why everybody turned their back on us? Is that why we're treated the way we do? Because everybody's lives matter. We are not opposed to reform, but reform has been very one-sided to the well-being of the incarcerated individuals, but not to the well-being of correction officers. And that has to change. And I see some new faces here. I want to thank you, Mr. Ramos, because it's been a long time coming that I actually hear somebody on the board talk very positively about correction officers. We are not guards. You're right. Thank you for acknowledging that. And like I said, I look forward to working with this Board of Corrections. I am willing to sit down with any advocate, any of the advocates, the Legal Aid Society, so you really want to talk about reform, let's have meaningful conversations. But as long as they are meaningful, because the reality is that we don't live in a utopia. And you see the crime wave that is happening in New York City. So it's like you decide what you want to do, right? Either they're going to be running the streets in New York and gun violence is going to be crazy, and we'll be dealing with that, or we'll have an increase in the population. Listen, we don't get to decide who's in our custody, how long they're on our custody. We are not champions of mass incarceration. Come on. We live in a city that has 9 million people. We have 5,500 inmates approximately. That's not mass incarceration. And when you go to the borough-based jails and you cap out at 3,900, everybody needs to decide on what's going to happen with the overflow, because none of us have a crystal ball to know how much crime is going to be happening in New York City and whether you still want those individuals to be running in New York City. I thank you for the time. Oh, and one other thing. Tahani Dunn, by the way, Diaz's incident happened in a dorm area, not in a cell area. So we'd appreciate if you're going to tell a story about one of your clients, have them not be disingenuous with the public. All right? Like I said, I'm not opposed to working with anybody that wants to have a meaningful conversation. But like I said, we matter as well. I thank you all for your time, your consideration of the things that I've said. And listen, the board, we need help. We need your help. We come here, my board member, Ashaki Antoine, comes here month after month pleading about what's going on with us. We need your help. So please, help us. Help us, help the incarcerated individuals so we can make, jail safer for everybody, because that's all we want. All we want is to be safe. Triple tours, double, I mean, come on. Like, when do we get our sanity? When does a quality of life for a correction officer matter to our elected officials in this city? It's time for those things to change. Thank you very much for your time.
First, I would like to welcome Mr. Ramos and Ms. Pitts onto the board and into this discussion. Good morning. My name is Ashaki Antoine, and I am the first citywide trustee of the Correctional Officers Benevolent Association. In March meeting, the BOC provided a follow-up to a few concerns forwarded by COBA. I just wanted to provide you with a follow-up regarding these concerns. COBA addressed the temperature of the housing area hot pots. Although DOC states the temperature of the hot pots were lowered, inmates are manipulating the hot pot mechanism to increase the temperature, and as a result, they continue to splash officers and other inmates with boiling water, causing injury. The security risk groups, known as SRG housing, although the DOC has started the blending of these units in RNDC, the other facilities, AMKC, OBCC, and NIC, are still overpopulated with particular sets of gangs, creating a continued hostile work environment, a security and safety issue for everyone. Inoperable cell doors. Although in RNDC cell doors were replaced, in other facilities, such as AMKC, the cell doors are inoperable, broken, and is in need of an overall plan to get those doors replaced or fixed. Mandated lock-in for all inmates is at 9 p.m. The cell doors do not work. The cell doors are not secured. So in essence, the inmates are never secured in their cells and can exit and enter their cells at their leisure. Can you imagine a correction officer, female or male, conducting a tour on the midnight, and the inmate exits the cell and drags the officer into the cell to sexually assault or physically assault them? To ensure a safe and secure environment for everyone, especially during lock-in times, the city and or DOC must invest in an outside or inside contractor to fix the doors thoroughly, one housing area at a time. Since last month's meeting, a correction officer was slashed in his face, almost losing his eye, by an inmate whose life he was trying to save. 2 more women were sexually assaulted by inmates, and countless others were sexually harassed. The inmates were rearrested. However, they were brought back into the housing area to violate and to repeat this deviant behavior for a second and sometimes third time. As the oversight entity, does that sit well with any of you on the BOC board? How are you going to address this? Inmates continue to threaten correction officers and display weapons and shanks, which are captured on Gentech video. Every inmate detained has a weapon on their person. The inmates continue to block cameras in the housing areas to commit crimes. I know most of you have observed this on Gentech video. What is your plan or recommendation to DOC to abate this issue? Why have you turned a blind eye to this serious issue and continue to play hide and seek regarding the issues that should take first priority? Holding inmates accountable for their assaultive actions is paramount. Every month, I provide documented evidence of what correction officers are faced with daily. It appears that disciplining of the correction officers has become the focal point for many of you. Officers are being disciplined for inmate misbehavior and violent acts. Meanwhile, the inmate who commits an infraction against an officer or nonviolent inmate while detained are faced with no discipline at all. Currently, the system in place is unfair and totally unbalanced. In closing, there are no consequences for crimes committed in jails daily. The inmates continue to commit more crimes, which leaves correction officers, civilians, and nonviolent inmates who become victims vulnerable. We need your help. It's enough is enough. Everyone's life is at stake. Everyone, from the correction officer, from the inmate, to civilian staff, to physician. Everyone's life is at stake. We must come together for the greater good to improve the conditions on Rikers Island. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank you.